Good evening, dear viewers, and welcome to RTD's English News Edition. The top stories. The official visit of the President of the Republic to China. Iran and Turkey agreed to meet regime and position in Sochi. Those are the top stories. Thank you for joining us in our newsroom. President Anglais' official visit to China took on the air of exceptional honor that the Middle Kingdom grants to its most illustrious guests. It included an important welcome troop review, the interpretation of the Djiboutian national anthem, and the displacement in full of all members of Chinese government. A choir of children from Beijing's main primary schools has also been mobilized. Through indigenous singing and dances planned for occasion, this group of students extended a long welcome to President Anglais. All this protocol of reception took place on the esplanade of the Great Palace of Peoples of Peking, public building highly ceremonial and on which China is authorized to hold ceremonies. The esteem conceded to President Anglais as part of this official visit to China is also marked with 21 cannon shots fired upon his arrival on the esplanade of the Great Hall of the Peoples of Beijing. It is also the measure of the Djiboutian flag allowed to float the duration of the official visit of the head of state of Djibouti in China on the main artery of the Chinese capital. Note that the president of the Authority of Ports and Free Zones of Djibouti, Mr. Abubakar Omar Hadi, is also part of the delegation accompanying the head of state in China. Then the President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, during his 3 days official visit to China at the invitation of Mr. Xi Jinping, held today an important working meeting with his Chinese counterpart. The consolidation of relations of friendship and cooperation between the two countries and the two peoples was at the heart of the discussions of this meeting. Very quickly, given the explanatory nature of cooperation that has existed for several decades between the two countries, the talks quickly focused on defining the new impetus to which we must dedicate a win-win cooperation that unites the two nations. This means that after the remarkable success that has led to the close cooperation between the two countries in the area of the construction of flagship development infrastructure, the two leaders are now thinking together about the initiation partnership likely to flow rapid socially and financially. All of these discussions resulted in the signing of a series of agreements from the outset. The latter concerned respectively a preferential loan concession for our country, the provision of support for the housing policy, and the intensification of technical cooperation between the two nations. The signing of these agreements came at the end of the working meetings between the two heads of state. It was the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Mohamed Ali Yusuf, who initiated these agreements with the Djibouti side. And Dr. Jamia Amioki has, in an interview granted to the national press, talked about the establishment of new partnership around the concept of creation of industries in Djibouti, a process able to act on the national problem of the fight against poverty and unemployment. The priority of the political program of President Gele was discussed and planned during the working meeting between the two heads of state. In this regard, President Ismail Omar Gele reviewed the many provisions, including the rapid acquisition of cheap energy and clean for our country, to arrival on the job market of several generations of Djiboutians trained in trades, technical and engineers who are in perfect harmony with the expectation of large industrial investors. The head of state also took advantage of this meeting, he said, with his counterpart Xi Jinping to carry out a general inventory of the other objectives suspended in the Vision 2035 program condensed for Djibouti's strategic plan with a view to its legitimate access. In addition to job creation, the fight against food insecurity, and thirst, the fight against insalubrity and housing-related precariousness, the strengthening of the human heritage was among them. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Omar Gele, has spoken of all these other aspects of Vision 2035 program of Djibouti, reports to its Chinese counterpart of the availability of our country to initiate a new policy of strategic cooperation with the Middle Kingdom around the said building sites, he said. After his meeting with the Chinese President, the President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Omar Gele, will also visit, as part of this official visit to China, Tianjin, one of the large economic megacities in China, where he will maintain with senior executives at the head of important commercial industries and financial companies. A team from the RTD is on the spot with our colleague Nasir, went in advance to this city of Tianjin, where he sent us the images of this great industrial megapolis. Our team also met a Djiboutian who works in a Chinese company in Tianjin. According to our correspondent Nasir, the President will visit this city of Tianjin, where he will meet the leaders of the big Chinese group in this city. This meeting is the fruit of privileged relations between Djibouti and the People's Republic of China, which has been strengthened lately. The city of Tianjin is preparing to welcome President Gele in his delegation, and our team met a Djiboutian Fateh Moussa Reale, who works in the group China Merchant Group, which has invested heavily in Djibouti. She declared that the city of Tianjin will honorably welcome President Gele, who is in Beijing for a first official meeting with the Chinese President on his re-election. Tianjin is a cosmopolitan city and is home to major Chinese industrial and commercial groups. During his trip to Tianjin, President Gele will hold talks with leaders of Chinese-based groups and investors in Tianjin to further strengthen the ties of cooperation between the two countries. An end of training ceremony chaired by Lieutenant General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim was held this morning at the Technical and Tactical Training Center, SITA. A dozen interns of female army personnel have received training in the field of computer science. Upon his arrival at SITA, General Zakaria was greeted by the SITA commander, Lieutenant Colonel Gatito, as well as General Muhammad Ali and General Hassan Ali Kamil, as well as many officers of the Djiboutian Army Forces. It is the Lieutenant Colonel Musa Muhammad Musa, President of the Commission of Examination, to proclaim the results of the trainees, who are on the whole very satisfactory. General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim congratulated the trainees, in particular elevated to the rank of corporal at the premiere of the promotion. Know that the Djiboutian Army has made its tradition the training of its staff for a professional year. And yesterday, the Secretary of State for Social Affairs organized a ceremony to hand sewing machines in partnership with the NGO called the Charitable Society for Social Welfare. The State Secretary for Social Affairs received a donation of 30 automatic and manual sewing machines at the same time. These machines were granted to active women and able to use them to develop income-generating activities. Under the auspices of the State Secretariat for Youth and Sports, this morning at the Hassan Goulet Stadium, the launch of preparations for the national dialogue with Djiboutian youth took place. Unemployment, lack of education, violence, drugs, overcrowding, it is besides to find solutions and remedy these scourges that threaten our young people that the head of state made heard during his speech. The National and African Youth Day is desired to launch a policy of national dialogue with the youth of Djibouti to boost its policy of creating a youth of tomorrow flourished, strong and fraternal. We are sure of the idea that these scourges are likely to take on significant proportions and also make an obstacle to boost this huge demographic dividend represented by our youth. The senior official of the State Secretary for Youth and Sports, Hassan Mohamed Kanimil, has today launched the preparation of the national dialogue with young Djiboutians to give young people the feeling of being listened to and considered. 11th edition of Arta's Walking Tour, a walk in the service of the 10th of its kind in the country. The Arta hike is planned tomorrow in the region. The organizers have marked the course, which will have to borrow seasoned hikers and novices who are respectively from various artisans. Tomorrow, placed under the auspices of the State Secretariat for Youth and Sports, the sporting event is dedicated to the strengthening and the culture of peace. The 11th edition of the Arta hike, a walk in the service of peace. Indeed, civil and military personalities and simple anonymous persons are called on to compete during this march in the service of peace. A meeting of the Orientation Committee for the preparatory of the work, the International Conference for the Affiliates and Friends of the World Federation for Trade Unions, took place today at the headquarters of the Union. At this meeting, the participation of a national delegation of trade unions. It was composed of the Secretary General of the UGTD, Said Yonis, accompanied by the Director of Labor of the Inspector General of Labor and experts of the CNSS. The purpose of this meeting was to prepare the International Conference of Affiliates and Friends of World Federation of Trade Unions, which will take place from 5 to 8 December to Djibouti. In addition, this preparatory meeting had for objective of highlighting the fruitful and constructive dialogue between the Djiboutian trade unions and the public authorities so that the conference could be held up. On the international scene now, the leaders of Russia, Turkey and Iran met on Wednesday to discuss ways to advance a political settlement in Syria. The Syrian opposition groups met in Saudi Arabia to form a unified front ahead of peace talks in Geneva. Let's listen to Hindi Ibrahim.
The leaders of Russia, Turkey and Iran met on Wednesday to discuss ways to advance on political settlement in Syria as Syrian opposition groups meet in Saudi Arabia to form identify from ahead of peace talks in Geneva. Bashar al-Assad had made a surprise visit to Russia late Monday for talks with Putin, which the Kremlin say were intended to lay the groundwork for the trilateral meeting in Sochi on Wednesday. Speaking after the three-way talks, Putin said that the Syrian regime leader pledged to conduct constitutional reforms and hold new.
Informally, in Bangladesh signed an agreement on the return of Rohingyas refugees. Let's listen to this report.
Myanmar and Bangladesh signed a deal on Tuesday, paving the way for the possible repatriation of Rohingya Muslims who have fled violence in Pakistan. State officials say as global pressure mounts over the refugee crisis, more than 620,000 Rohingya have poured into Bangladesh since August, running from a Myanmar military crackdown that Washington said this week clearly constitute ethnic cleansing. After weeks of studying of the term of repatriation, the two sides inked a deal in Myanmar's capital, Naypyidaw, on Tuesday, following talks between Myanmar civil Leo Aronk Sen Zoog Ki and Dekais Foreign Minister H. Mahmoud Ali, Myanmar and Bangladesh sign a memorandum of understanding today. Myan Ken, the Permanent Secretary of Myanmar's Ministry of Labour, Immigration and Population, confirmed to AFP.
It is with these images we close our edition. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.